planning the workflow, session planning, that kind of thing. And the second phase being actually setting up the microphones, recording the sounds of the artist, etc. So we're opening Pro Tools. We're going to set up a session, and in setting up the session, we are going to discuss the I/O layout of the A-Room studio in which we're working tonight. Set up here in a template. It comes in with 24 audio tracks, each of which is assigned to one of the preamp inputs, normaled through a specific conversion channel. And that's all set up for us. So we're going to choose some hardware. So we're going to take you through some basics of session setup. I'm going to keep it pretty basic, being that here at the Recording Conservatory, your first project is going to be largely singer-songwriter based. And so what I'm imagining here is that we're setting up this session for the first time. So what we're looking at here is what I would call AG1 left and AG1 right. Call this vocal. Call this room. It's over here. These three mics are going to be our main guitar recording scenario. We're going to color code these. Not like that. Color code by double clicking down here in the color margin. Hide my piano track. I always like to have that up here in case I need it. The click will serve us well.
How do you get your whole bar colored like that?
My whole bar color. Question is, how do I get my whole bar colored like that? What do you mean?
Like the whole channel strip. It's like
as opposed to what? Just this down here and the rest is gray? So that is this setting right here. That's what you're asking, right? Yep. So there's this rainbow button, which basically just means tracks are colored. You see over here. So either your entire track area is gray and you only have these color bars at the bottom to indicate the color of the track, or you can have the entire track be colors. No, I can officially say I have never used this setting for anything.
I want to say, like, before you actually get it set up, it's standard gray.
You mean when Pro Tools loads in for the first time, brand new? Yeah. So.
Because I was looking at gray for way too long, and then I got lucky and I added that button.
Cool. Good. Okay. So let's nip that in the bud. For everybody who's new, and if you're watching this in either right now, getting ready for your first few sessions, or you're watching this in preparation for your first few sessions, and this is a recorded version, same thing applies. Let's go ahead and open the color menu. Double click down here in the little color block. If you're over in the edit window, it'd be over in the left color margin. A double click is going to bring up your track, your color floating menu, and you're going to click here on the rainbow button to make your tracks conform to the color that you're selecting. You're going to set your saturation all the way up, brightness wherever you like it. I prefer lower brightness. But that would be very monitor dependent. And then we're going to use some color coding here to color code the different types of track that we're using. So in this case, we have 3 tracks devoted to guitar. I'm going to make them the only color that makes sense for me, and that's purple. Color coding becomes very sort of personal thing for your workflow. What you want to do is decide as early as you can what color belongs to each track, each type of input source. So you have a track color for, say, keyboards, one for guitars, one for drums, etc. It'll help you in the long run become somebody who can visually navigate a session really quickly. It's not that big a deal when there's 5 tracks in the session. You'll get to a point where you're working on sessions with 100+ tracks, and this makes a big difference. Next thing I'm going to do is group my tracks together using the key Command G, and that is going to create a group. I'm going to call this AG1. We're using a shorthand here that is specific to me. What I encourage students to do here is to develop either their own shorthand or go ahead and use mine. What is important is that you can quickly navigate a session and understand the tracks you're looking at. Now, the main reason that I like to use an alphanumeric shorthand and not type out acoustic, guitar, that this group of tracks is going to be, and then I'm using a number to indicate which specific take this is, or which specific instrumental voice in my arrangement. So I might have AG2, AG3, AG4, depending on how many layers of acoustic guitar. One might be a rhythm, one might be a lead, one might be a double. Choose to replace that left and right with 87-103, especially if this particular recording was not one that specifically adhered to sort of a left-right stereo convention. In this case, I'm going to leave the left-right, generally speaking, and it gives me enough information to see the type of input, the number of layers I have of that input, and the particular miking configuration I'm using. Enough information to identify the track that I'm working with. So by grouping these three together, it's tied my faders together. And there are some tracking key commands that I think are really important to get right off the bat. Specifically, the modifier keys for dealing with group faders. So if you hold Control, Control is going to let you access one fader out of the group. Let go of Control and your fader's tied together again. That goes, 6 are globals and attributes. Globals are attributes that are tied together for anything that follows globals. So every group, has the option of either checking this box to follow the globals or unchecking the box, in which case attributes are what will be followed. So if I want this group to have specific attributes that it ties together that are not the global attributes, I'd have to uncheck follow globals and then come in here and choose piecemeal what I want to follow. But that gives you a good indication of how you can tie some stuff together. Something I might tie together that probably isn't right now would be record enable. So if we right now click record enable for any one of these tracks, I get record enable for only this one track. Now record enable is what allows me to record audio data onto the track just by pressing the record button. So once we start the record pass, reset these guys. Good. So I've got my group set up. It's color coded. I'm going to make a color for my vocals, which for me is going to be yellow. Whoa, not master. Vocal, we want that one yellow. We're going to be a little bit more off the cuff today. As part of this seminar, scope is not to record a full song, mostly to focus on setup and to focus on getting sounds and signal flow, etc. Okay, so we've got these acoustic guitar LE4496 and the Apogee Symphony. So we need to make a decision. We need to go one way or the other, either Lavry or Apogee. The reason for that is that every A to D converter has a baked-in conversion latency. Now, it's not very much, but it's enough to cause very minor phase and or timing. We could be introducing some phase or timing issues that we really don't want. So we're just going to go ahead and choose to run everything, in this case, through the Apogee. I'm going to select an unused Apogee input. I'm just going to use Apogee 1. And I'm going to grab a patch cable, come over to my patch bay. We're going to patch my, what am I on? Vintech 1. So I'm going to patch Vintech 1 over here on the right-hand side over to Apogee 1, putting all of my conversion in the same unit. That are nearly impossible to account for later on. Okay, so we've got that all set up. Now what I want to do is discuss a few different potential workflows for the tracking session. We may end up walking back and forth to the live room to discuss some of this. It really depends on how to best visualize it. But you really have sort of two primary options, and one is to record vocals and guitar all at the same time. it should be fairly evident if that's the case. You should be able to have them play the song for you and it sounds fine, and then they sit down and try to separate the guitar and it sounds worse. It sounds uncomfortable. Now, I would say a really great general sort of things that are great things to have in a mix. When you're sitting down to work on a mix, they're great things for an engineer to have. They will elevate a production when you're good at getting them. However, none of them will trump a really good natural sounding performance. At the end of the day, we're here to try to make music productions, and performance is the absolute core of that. So, can perform to a click. We would much rather they do so because that gives us options later in post-production. It'll often create a performance that is more pleasing to the pop ear because it'll be more consistent and more metronomic. Now that said, one of the worst things you can do is bring an artist in and set them up in a situation where the first thing they do is try to do something they think is normal for the studio and fail at it, which will be the case if you try to force the click on most people. Playing with a metronome, playing with a click, especially in the studio environment, is just something that musicians have to get used to over a period of time. So what you should try to do with a newer artist is to encourage them to perform to a click when possible, encourage them to practice to a click, encourage them that metronome practice will be a great way to enhance and improve their abilities in the studio. But if they're not comfortable with it when they come in, don't record to the click. Don't even make them try. Just forget the idea, and attention and their energy can all be put into just performing that thing the way they're comfortable performing it. Okay, so with all that said, use that as a scratch guide, the recording of the vocal and the guitar. They'd record guitar over that recording. It's in the closet. That's not really going to help. Thank you, though. I appreciate it. And at this point, transition to phase 2, where we'll go in and actually start recording. We'll talk to the artist. We'll see what they want to do and get this thing set up. This, because they're sturdy, they're heavy, they're built not to be loud. They're built not to make squeaky noises. There's no back on it, so that you don't have to worry about your artist leaning back and creaking the chair. Kind of forces good posture sometimes. I don't mind it. It's pretty good. Yeah. Okay, cool. So that's an important conversation to have, separating vocals from guitar. Would you be comfortable doing both at the same time?
I don't really know the song that well.
Right. So.
Earlier when no one is in the room. Everything else is live streaming except in this room.
That's weird. Well, but so you're gonna solve that. Okay, cool. Okay. It gives me a better mode of communication with them. It also lets me see if they move in front of the microphones pretty well. So let's go ahead and get 2 short stands out. It's usually pretty easy to tell a difference between a small diaphragm condenser and a large diaphragm condenser. The small diaphragm condensers are usually small. They're like tiny. Really though, tend to be doesn't respond as quickly to the transient. So small diaphragm condensers have very, very good transient response. They have very accurate response, meaning that it takes, and we want the biggest, best sounding usually. So large diaphragm condensers will give you bigger bass response usually. They'll give you smoother transient response. And generally tend to have a smoother, sort of creamier tone. Let's see. I'm gonna go something like this. May potentially be better. The second is that you will give yourself more and more opportunity to perfect the central skill of audio production, which especially on this kind of recording, is that the headphones themselves become part of the sound at that point. And most headphones that we have, that any studio is going to have just available for artists, are not the kind that I'm super into making audio decisions through. Yeah, if you've got a pair of headphones that you really trust, like you do studio monitors, then absolutely give that a shot. Are you answer would be yes. Thank you, Drew. Why don't you grab that headphone box and pull it out here? So what I'm way more likely to do is plug one ear. I'm gonna get down here just in case the camera actually is find a place that my ear likes. Generally, I find that it's basically doing the same thing, which is
seems more natural.
It seems more natural to me. I find I get better results that way. Certainly, definitely try the headphones out. See if that method works for you. Then certainly. So go ahead and play. Yeah. So why am I getting close? Anybody? Because it's quiet. But why would getting close benefit me?
So you can hear better?
Sure. Okay. So there's that reason, which is always a reason. Like everything we do here is because we want a better sound, fuller sound, whatever sound we're going for. We want more of that. The other big concern here is signal-to-noise ratio. Signal-to-noise ratio becomes a concern when we have a low signal. So remember that your signal will be amplified after your mic. So your mic plugs into a preamp, at which point your signal strength comes up. But before that point, your signal is as loud as the source is. Your noise is a fixed level, and so if your signal source is quiet, then your baked-in signal-to-noise ratio is low, meaning you have a low signal strength, and it's going to be closer in relative strength to your noise, and so you're going to end up with a lot of hiss, a lot of noise in your signal. So that's the other secondary technical reason that I'm going to try to get real close to this guitar while he plays quietly. Cool. So let's get you in the phones. As always, I'm going to take time to make sure that my artist feels comfortable in the headphones. That is another one of these sort of like paramount important responsibilities for especially your first few sessions where you're super reliant on performance. Your artist just has to feel comfortable in the headphones. They're not always going to be great at letting you know when they're not comfortable in the phones. A lot of people come into the studio, especially the first few times, having been told that it feels really weird in the headphones and you just got to get used to it. You got to practice being in the studio. And so they come in and the mix in their phones might suck. It might suck being in the headphones and they just go, well, that's the way it is. I got to tough it out. I find that it's really helpful to say that to your artists. To say like, yeah, I know people often come in here and want to tough it out, want to prove that they can do this. It's so important to me that you have the headphone mix that makes you feel good and makes you feel natural in the phones. So whatever you need, just let me know. Let's get this sounding good for you. This should sound good. You should like being in these headphones. And hopefully what that's going to do is make your artist just complain to the point where it just drives you nuts. But I would much prefer to deal with somebody who's persnickety about their headphone mix than somebody who tries to tough out something rough and just performs badly as a result. So things you want to look out for: the master volume knob. Don't ever put somebody in headphones without checking this, making sure it's nice and medium. 50% at most. I like to turn it down to about a quarter. Let them turn it up if they need to. Get their mix kind of centered. Let them know what you're going to hear is yourself coming back through. I'll put you in drums. I'll just keep everything right up here. Yeah? Yeah. And then your click will come down through 16. Click is noted as click. Mm-hmm. Yeah? All right, cool. This is the level you're going to hear me talk to you back. Talk back volume.
Gotcha. All right.
Cool. Feeling good?
Yeah.
Great. Let's go back into... What? Oh, don't plug those in. We don't need to plug those in. Of course, we do need to plug these in. Let's do... what did I choose in there? I feel like I chose preamps in there.
You did. You chose...
Yeah, let's go into 1 and 2 and we'll patch. Yay! You gonna do the patch? Woo!
Woo! What do you want to go into? You said 1 and 2.
Ladies and gentlemen, patching tonight will be Drew Mitchell demonstrating her virtuosic skills on the patch bay. So we're going into Vintech 1 and Wonder A with these two microphones. Mm-hmm. Great. And that should be good. Thank you. So what Drew did is she took the signal from live room 1 and 2, where we plugged our two XLRs in, and patched them over to Vintech 1 and Wonder A, the preamps that I have chosen here. Those then either normal or connect through patch cables to the Apogee inputs that we have selected here in Pro Tools. All right, so when your artist is in there sound checking, it is important that you ask that for them and sometimes remind them to play the thing that you're about to record. Sometimes you'll have artists in there just playing some completely unrelated material. So firstly, you should have been studying the demo, so you should know the song. And if they're playing something that isn't the song, that should be very obvious, and you should be able to tell them, hey, stop it, I need you to sound check on the thing we're about to play. This is not that exactly. You should know that. So get your demo, study your demo, be the leader of your session. That's an important thing at all times. So we're going to start here on Vintech 1. Vintech 1 is what kind of preamp? They're all good ones. Thanks, Drew. Vintech 1 is a solid state preamp. And I'm going to record enable over here. Oh, remember I tied those together? There we go. I'm going to hold control, click my record enable button. And my KM84 is what kind of microphone?
Condenser.
What kind of condenser?
Small diaphragm.
Small diaphragm condenser. So I need phantom power or no?
Yeah.
Phantom power, yes. I'm going to engage phantom power. Through the magic of audio science. So I like to start my preamp work with my output gain pretty much dimed. In this case, fully dimed. And now what I'm gonna do is turn my input gain up. First to get up to my sort of -15 starting point. And then I'm gonna turn it up more and compensate with my output gain in order to experiment with a more saturated preamp setting. Play this song. Thank you. So I'm gonna back it off a little bit. That got pretty saturated there at the end. But I do like a little heat on that from the Vintech. So we're gonna leave it about here. Remember input levels, we're gonna peg those at about -15. I'm gonna try some EQ here. Flip my EQ on. I'm gonna try a little 12K. Give me some brightness. See what 220 does for me. I might want to cut that. I don't hate that. It's a little muddy, but it makes it nice and warm. Compensate with my output. So this is without EQ. This is with. Cool. Thank you. I decided on 3K. Thank you. Yes. Good eyes. Yes, I decided on 3K. So now I'm going to try my other microphone. What my other microphone is another KM84, yeah? What kind of mic is that?
Small diaphragm condenser.
Small diaphragm condenser. Needs phantom power? Yes. Engaging phantom power. I'm going to dime my output gain. See where that gets me. Cool. I'm gonna try a little EQ here. Ooh. So without my EQ, and then with. Now my EQ brought my level up some, so I'm going to use my output gain to compensate back to my -15 input level that I'm shooting for. Now I want to bring my two guitar microphones together. Assess phase. Good. This is a good example. We haven't had one of these in a while. What am I hearing here? Yes, but I think it could be better. I don't feel like I'm losing as much as I'd like to. So my phase is not terrible, but I'd like it to be a little better. So I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna try adjusting my. You're doing such a good job. Really though, I appreciate it. This guy's one, I thought so.
Any good tricks to help your phase relationship here?
Move mic, see what goes on. So this is what we call a spaced pair. In that it doesn't conform to one of your normal, well, one of your standard formatted stereo configurations, being AB, XY, ORTF, etc. So there are no real super great rules. We could use the rule of three. Sound hole? Sure, we try equal distance from the sound hole, but the sound doesn't really just come from the sound hole. That'd be nice. Unfortunately, it's not quite that. It just doesn't quite work like that. We don't have a nice geometric place to measure from. It'd be sweet if we did. Right, exactly. Well, and also sound is just resonating out from the wood in all directions. So in this case, that wouldn't be that applicable. So really what we're trying to do, unfortunately, is sort of manage the randomness of this. Like this might be in, this might be out, in, out. So we're just trying to try another spot and hope it's better. We could apply the rule of threes, which would say measure the distance from one mic to the guitar and then place the other microphone exactly 3 times that distance away. So that gives you the best mathematical advantage. Let's try it out. Mathematically speaking, that should give you the least likelihood of being out of phase. It's been my experience that it's kind of a crapshoot, but we'll see. It's pretty good. It's definitely better. So the other thing we need to consider with phase is sameness. So we're going to solo this one. Okay, so you can pause for a sec there. Thanks, dude. So couple things I want to mention at this point. One is that when we're dealing with phase, the concept of sameness is really important. Now, these two mics actually sound pretty different. They sound similar enough that we should expect there to be a phase relationship. We should definitely be able to hear one audibly, like good click, bad click, right? But not so much that we're going to hear a whole huge chunk of the sound disappear just because they're not that similar. Meaning that no matter how closely you tried to line them up, they'd still be kind of off most of the time. That's one of the things that the rule of threes is trying to accomplish. The other thing to keep in mind is independently evaluating these sources. So I'm hearing these, and I'm loving the neck, and I'm kind of like, on the bridge. You guys kind of with me on that? Let me give you another example. Go ahead and play the same thing again, please. So this is both together. That's the neck. That's the bridge. You like the bridge? All right, my man likes the bridge. So you can pause for a sec. So if this is Justin's bag, then maybe we move the other mic over to the bridge and try an XY. I'm interested to see what happens with an XY sort of.
I think we should add the neck in too, but I just like how the bridge sounds.
Okay, you like how the bridge sounds. You like how they both sound together. Okay. Not yet ready to commit. Let's get one more check with both of these together, and actually let's record a little bit. Woo! Let's record without the click. Oh, you found the click was too loud right there? Thank you. Thank you. Drew Mitchell, ladies and gentlemen. Just play a few bars for us, please. Great, thanks, man. Cool, so that's a good example of how this sounds. And now let's go move to an XY position and see what we get from that. It's worth noting that I really don't hate where we're at. This is actually a pretty good sound. I'm just hearing a little bit of sort of,
Sounds a little close.
yeah, little boomy. We'll try a nice solid XY, maybe like over here. Ooh. You know what I should have done? Turn that volume down in there. Would you mind getting me, Drew? Thanks.
Would you like briefly explain what the XY is all about? I mean, I can see what you're doing, but you're just trying to cross.
Yes, so the XY is about placing these two microphones either at perpendicular, one right on top of the other like this, or at a 90-degree box like that. I'm actually going to go with one on top of the other like this. But I do want to be up close like we were before. I liked what Close was doing. Let's see how this works out. Cool, yeah, so the XY puts both capsules in the same phase position, right, relative to the instrument. So we should have perfect phase here at the capsules, really good cancellation, and still have sort of a this side and this side of the guitar kind of thing going on. In general, what I was hearing was I really liked being up close over here, so we kept this guy kind of doing the same thing, and we're just going to add another one on top pointed the other way and see how that goes. So when you're ready, go ahead and play the same thing. So that's real phase. So now we know our phase is as good as it gets. That's one. So now, and this to me, this is giving me that sort of warmer bridge side that I like. Yep. And I can pan these out. Give me a nice big wide guitar. I'm liking that. So this is a good example. Thanks, you can stop for a sec. It's a great example of responding to the input, responding to the source. I'm not usually a big XY guitar guy. It's rarely the place where my mind starts. But in this case, I heard one mic, one position, one. You know what it is? It's one patch of air. I heard one patch of air where that guitar was really doing well. And another where it was kind of meh. We were having trouble with phase. We were kind of like scratching and clawing for little pieces of success. And so we just shifted the paradigm. We went to an XY, both capsules in that patch of air that I knew worked. Kept one pointed at the same kind of place it was pointed at. Got the other one pointed at the other axis of the guitar to get that body. And I'm really enjoying where this is at. I might actually exaggerate this top end EQ on both sides. So I think it can handle it now a little bit. Cool. Okay, so we've got our close mic guitar sound, yeah? And I'm gonna take these guys and just cut, skip our first playlist like we're getting ready to record. Now let's add a room mic to this consideration. So this is usually the way my thinking goes. I get my close mics up, and then I decide what I want for a room mic. My close mics are super close. We pointed that out, right? Woo! My close mics being close are that way for a reason. It's, again, so we get that good signal to noise ratio. And because I have a quiet source. So with that sort of paradigm in mind, let's think about a room mic that works for that same sort of mentality. Maybe let's do a condenser mic. What, do you have a thought?
Royer?
You want to do the Royer?
Well, I mean, that's an omni.
It's an omni?
Is it omnidirectional?
So the question is the Royer an omnidirectional? No, the Royer SF24 that we have here at the studio, let's bring that into view. This guy, is actually a Bloom line configuration. I don't know if the camera can see it here. Hopefully it can. This is a Bloom line configuration, which gives us 2 figure-8 microphones. The figure-8 could actually be a great thing to use here, though. So let's get a figure-8 out in front of the artist, not too far, far enough that it's a little more distant than those 2 other mics, just enough to give us some 3D and add a 3rd dimension to this without adding any stereo phase incoherence. So we're totally phase coherent so far. Let's try to remain so by keeping this guy nice and far back, or I should say far enough back that it's not going to have a strong phase relationship to these two microphones. And let's use the top of this Royer to get a nice kind of left-right figure 8. Yeah, get a nice left-right figure 8 going.
Where are you getting the figure 8 from?
Where am I getting the figure 8 from? Like, how do I know it's figure 8?
Well, wait, what about it is figure 8?
Aha, so what is figure 8? Figure 8 is a capsule configuration. Potential capsule configurations would be cardioid, omnidirectional, figure 8. And then you have degrees of cardioid, hyper, super, etc. So then we've got the figure 8 configuration of this particular microphone, or any figure 8 microphone, gives you one pickup pattern behind and another pickup pattern in front of, leading to that kind of like figure 8, right? So we've got this way and this way. Generally speaking, ribbon mics are figure 8 microphones. That tends to be the way that their capsules are set up. It is the case with this particular ribbon microphone. Let's see if I do that. Can I get it to stick? Would you stick? There it is, cool. And so now this capsule is going to pick up over here and over here, and we're going to put it center and push it back just to give us some depth. What it should do is add to the left in a way that makes the left sound more left, and add to the right in a way that makes the right sound more right, and give the whole thing some 3D space backwardly. So that's plugged into 3, yeah? Great. Let's go check that out. What do we want to use for this guy? Yeah, let's go Vintech 2. To be perfectly honest, my choice of Vintech 2, which let's patch that over to Apogee 2. You know what? I'm going to change that up. Vintech was me having a lack of imagination. Let's go into Focusrite A. I'm going to turn that guy on. Just in case we want to use some EQ to knock this in with the rest of it. Yeah, we should Apogee 10, so we should be good to go. Thank you. So we're using a ribbon mic, yeah? Ribbon mics require phantom power. Generally, ribbon mics, phantom power, yeah? 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 No, no. Generally speaking, ribbon mics, no phantom power. No, no. You can blow up ribbon mics by sending phantom power to them. However, the Royer SF24 is the one exception to that rule that I've ever seen in life. That's the kind we have here. So in general, ribbon mics, phantom power, no. This particular ribbon mic, in this particular case, yes, phantom power, we're going to click it on. And record enable to add that to our signal path. Yeah, we're in Focusrite A. Yep. Yep, well that ought to be good, huh? All right. All right. But ¿por qué? ¿Por qué no? It does look good. It does look good. Maybe we have the... Oh.
Oh yeah, Focusrite A has been working all right. It's been a little wonky.
No, that was adding a boost. That was adding a 30 dB boost. So that's a lot of noise. So I'm going to call an audible because ribbon mics are pretty low output in general. Let's go with a condenser.
30 dB boost button though.
Yep. Let's go ahead and switch that out for a U87 in figure 8. Yeah? You like the 87? Let's do, ooh, that's a tough call. Let's do figure 8. Let's keep it lefty righty. Huh? All 3 modes at the same time. Just what we'll do is we'll have somebody in here just flipping back and forth while we record.
Does the U87 have all 3 modes?
It does, yes. This particular guy's pretty low output. And, huh? Do what? Does fan and power off?
I don't know, is it? You're the one that
I don't know. Why don't you go check it out? Yes, that would have been my job. Scratch that, that was my job. I didn't do it. I didn't check to see that fan and power was off. I may have clicked it, I just don't know. So we're going to switch out for a Neumann U87, which is higher output. Should enable us to be roughly the same distance and still be fairly okay. Fairly okay. We may still need to get closer. Because we have a quiet source and we have a quiet, and we're miking from, we're using a distant mic configuration. It's over on the arm of the couch.
Yeah, not blind.
Oh.
Can't argue with you.
I would never argue with you, Drew, for any reason. You bored of that song yet? Yep, good. It's been my experience usually that instrumental artists often actually benefit from playing their energy out a little bit before they have to actually do the take. Drummers especially can be like that. But same with the guitarist, you know, if after he's played it 12, 15 times and it's just kind of robotic, sometimes that can be the time to get a great take. That is in pretty stark contrast to something like a lead vocal, where oftentimes you just need to hear the raw spontaneity of that first time or two through it. When after that, when they're trying to execute things, you really hear them trying to execute in a way that you don't like. So it might be a little more obvious how the polar pattern's working out on this guy. We've got a figure 8 going left, right. So instead of pointing them either side directly at him, we're kind of pointing the off-axis side at him. That's the other reason that we're getting such a quiet response. Figure 8s are very cancellacious. Figure 8s have a very, very weak off-axis response, the weakest of all microphone capsules. So if you're trying to reject, the off-axis of a figure 8 is a great way to try to do it. So let's.
So you want it like you want the microphone facing.
So in this case, let's try a little Omni. Let's try a little Omni back here. See how that works out. Yeah, give it a shot. Hopefully we're far enough back that we.
How many does it receive the signal at the same strength all the way around?
Yes. It not only does it receive the signal at the same strength all the way around, but because of the way Omni works, it cancels out proximity effect. Omni is the only cardioid pattern that doesn't suffer from the proximity effect. What's the proximity effect?
The effect that being proximate makes.
The effect that being proximate makes. That, it sounds like you translated that from Latin. No, yes, it is the effect that being proximate makes. But that specific effect is an exaggerated low end, a rumbly low end, a longer low end. So low end is exaggerated both in length and energy. As signals get closer to a mic that's in cardioid or figure 8. In this case, we're going to try Omni on this U87. See how that works out.
The lower is more rumbly when you get close?
The proximity effect makes that happen, yeah. So think like DJ announcers, radio announcers. Guys, and they do that thing where they just swallow the mic and they get that huge bass response from their voice. That's the proximity effect. That's getting right up next to the microphone. The Focusrite A, please. So if you just plug it into channel 3, we should be good to go.
Okay, I think it's still.
Yeah, it should be good. If it's plugged into channel 3, it should be good.
Yeah, it's good.
Cool. Engaging the preamp. Let's see how this goes.
Phantom power? Oh no.
So right away, we've got a stronger signal. Still, there's a lot more noise on this than the other two. So that's something to consider when you're blending this in. I'm gonna use my filter. Cool. This is without the filter. I just don't need that mud. Same thing, roughly negative 15 peak input source. Now let's bring these two mics in and then see what this does. Cool, so this is definitely an interesting approach for a room mic where it's fairly close. The Omni pattern kind of gives it even a little bit more perceived closeness. And it has a nice sort of 3D fill to it. It gives us a nice, all the way across the spectrum, gives us some nice depth. And I kind of like it. Go ahead and play our example here. Let's record it a little bit. Awesome, that's good. Cool, so again, let's play that back a little bit. Without our room, and then with. Without. That's just the room. It's not. So, admittedly, it's one of the types of room mics that I really tend to love, which are the more psychoacoustic ones, where what you're really hearing it add is just a little dimension, just a little fullness. You're not hearing a big, exaggerated room reverb. It's going to be tough to hear that room reverb in this room with that quiet source without adding a whole bunch of noise to the signal. We could, I mean, we're already hearing the noise, right? And the nice thing about this is that we could blend it into taste. We could compress it if we wanted to get a little more of that snap out of it. Throw something like this on it.
It adds a little depth. But like,
Yeah.
It's nothing like super.
No, not at all. If we wanted to get something that was a little bit more strident, a little bit more obvious, we could go, I'm just going to throw this on here. I do, yeah. That's releases too. I love the energy a compressed reverb can add. I love the intensity. Compressed reverbs, especially compressed rooms, can have the effect. Now this room is pretty big, so it's tough to get this effect in this room, but in a smaller room, you can, a really compressed room mic can give you this claustrophobic feeling like you're in a small room with a really loud source, which can be dope for drums, dope for acoustic guitars, that kind of thing. Okay, so real quick, I want to go through setting up the click, and then we will be in good shape for today. Okay, so setting up the click. So we had him record a little bit, yeah? So we're just gonna play that back. Yes, the click is the metronome. And we're gonna click on the tempo. And tap along. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3. I need to let that reset because that is way too fast. That's probably more like 80 that we're the T key. 2, 3, 1, 2. So I'm gonna try 80. I think 80 is probably pretty. We might end up down at 75 or so. So now we're gonna try that from the top. So I'm gonna send you the click. First I'm gonna send you your guitar into the phones. So using Shift Option to affect every member of this group, I'm going to send his guitar out to drums. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the copy to send feature to copy the mix from down here up to the top. That's Option Command H. Option Command H lets me copy to send. I'm going to go to send A. I want volume and pan, current value, click OK. That copies this mix down here up to those faders. Should be a good starting point for him. Option Command H.
And that does what again?
So the question was, that does what again? I zoned out. The answer is copies to send. So it takes the mix from down here on the faders and mimics that mix up here on the little faders.
And once you do that and you need to adjust something on the bottom, it's not, you have to do that again every time you move something.
Correct, yeah. And that is definitely by design. We want to have an independent mix down here from what we have up here. That's the point of using pre-fader, in fact. So the question was, every time we make an adjustment down here, will it now copy that adjustment up here on the little faders? And again, the answer is no. That we definitely want those to be separate mixes. That way I can change the mix in here for the monitors and for the control room without changing the mix in his headphones while he's performing. We separate those two mixes by using pre-fader, this pre-fader setting. So now I will send the click out to 16. And I will just tell the artist, okay, I'm going to send you the click and let you play along for a sec and get everything set up in your headphones. Can you hear the click, sir?
Yeah, it sounds like it's still in 4.
It's definitely still in 4.
How about
So
that?
the artist has observed that the click is still in 4. The click will default to 4/4 time. So there's a couple things we could do here. We could make an adjustment within the click plugin. But in general, the better way to do it is to have the click plugin follow meter. Now you can click this to change it so that it doesn't follow the meter necessarily. We're gonna have the click follow meter. The meter is our time signature. And so we're gonna right click here on our rulers and show, and show the meter. We don't need minutes and seconds. Let's get rid of that. We don't need samples. And we can see the default here is 4/4. I'm gonna click the plus sign. And I'm going to go to the beginning, measure 1, beat 1, 3/4. The click is going to be quarter notes. And we know it's 3/4 because we've heard the song a little bit, we've analyzed, we've discussed with the artist. He just said maybe 6/8. To me, 6/8 is usually going to have more of a backbeat feel. It has more of a 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, ba, 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 ba. As opposed to 3/4, which has a 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3 kind of lilt to it. How does that seem to you in the headphones?
Seems a little fast. I think I'd like to play it a little slower.
Cool. Let's try. Usually when I'm quibbling for tempo, I'm going to try to find my ranges. So if they say too fast, I'll go like 10 beats per minute slower.
Okay.
Now I want to find too slow.
Okay.
It's that's fine.
Cool. You cool with the quarter note click? Would you like some eighth notes in there? What do you think?
Quarter note.
Cool. Usually quarter note click is great. If we needed to throw eighth notes in there, we go over to here to follow meter. It wouldn't be that uncommon for me to throw eighth notes into a click this slow. So this is what he's hearing in his headphones right now. Dum dum ba dum ba dum dum ba dum ba dum dum. In general, slow tempos are the hardest ones to keep in time, especially with a metronome. And that is great advice for anybody practicing to a metronome. Any of you guys who are learning musicianship, etc., practice things slow. It's counterintuitive, but slow is the more difficult. Practicing things slowly will definitely build your speed up a lot faster than practicing things fast. Cool, so that's set there. If he did want eighth notes, I'd uncheck follow meter here on the click plugin and just switch my click 2 to eighth notes, and that would sound like this. Which might be better for some. In this case, he doesn't want it, so we're gonna click that, go back to follow meter, and that'll be good. As our final thing, let's just record a little pass at this click. Whenever you're ready, sir. Now I usually want the click about as low as I can make it in the control room until I'm pretty confident that they're playing with the click and they're staying on the meter of the song, and then I pretty much don't want to listen to it. The reality is that your consumers will never hear the click, and it's way more important that the song has good feel. Sometimes good feel isn't exactly on the click all the time. I really encourage you guys to choose the takes that feel good without the click rather than the ones that seem to line up exactly to the dots. And then check in with it every once in a while. He seems pretty well on it. And there is no natural stopping point in this thing he's playing. Nope, nope. I don't know where I'm supposed to stop him. Oh, this is what we'll do. I should do it in Pro Tools so that the people at home can hear this. There it is. That's how you end a country song. Thanks, man. You're good. Woo! All right. So that concludes the broadcast portion of tonight's seminar. As always, students are encouraged to hang, discuss this with each other, look at everything we've got up close, get tactile with it, ask me questions. Thank you for hanging out online. Our next 2 weeks are off, so enjoy your holidays. And we will catch up with you in 3 weeks when our topic will be drum tracking. Thank you. Have a good night.